the U.S. intelligence community as a whole was spending somewhere between 55 and 60% of our resources on the Soviet Union.
That was our job, was to check them in the Third World, wherever it was, in Angola, in the Horn of Africa, in the Congo, in Afghanistan, in Iran. This was a constant silent war, if you will, that went on for decades.
That's the name of the game. I mean, our job was to find out what people were up to. And the best way to find that out is to penetrate some organization. Put somebody in there or defect somebody. And that's what name of the game, that's what we did.
We began our erroneous ways by importing as many Nazis as we could into the United States.
1943 flög den blivande CIA-chefen Allen Dulles till Schweiz för att i hemlighet förhandla med ett antal nazistledare. Redan tidigare hade man kontaktat chefen för Hitlers underrättelsetjänst, general Reinhard Gehlen, Klaus Barbie och Adolf Eichmanns högra hand Otto von Bolschwing. Alla de här krigsförbrytarna skulle anställas av CIA efter krigsslutet. Allen Dulles var en ryktbar advokat på Wall Street och hans största kund var Standard Oil, ett av de få företag som fortsatt att göra affärer med nazisterna under kriget.
And therefore America literally infected itself with Nazis immediately after World War II because that was the price it was willing to pay for their brains. That was the first mistake. The second mistake over time has been to believe that we could interfere in the affairs of others and literally topple governments by putting our money and our influence behind selected groups.
1953, när det kalla kriget var som intensivast, blev Allen Dulles CIA-chef. Antalet särskilda och hemliga operationer ökade stadigt efter hans tillträde.
If you go back to 1947 and take it all the way through Guatemala, Hungary, Berlin, Vietnam, Chile, all the operations over the years, the same kind of behavior is repeated again and again and again.
The CIA has mounted a number of covert operations. One of the reasons the CIA went into covert operations was because it was something no one else was doing, and so there was no bureaucratic competition over it. They also went into these operations because the presidents found that they could use this tool secretly without having to explain to the American people what they were doing.
It's probably changed a fair amount over the years. If you were to go back to the Eisenhower period or even the early Kennedy period, there really was much more discipline and much more secrecy. And this, of course, these were the days when the CIA was really doing things like Iran, like Guatemala, and so forth. You didn't actually hear much in this country about those operations in those days because people didn't talk about them.
I maj 1953 drar Dulles upp riktlinjerna för operation Ajax, den första i en lång rad statskupper som helt organiseras av CIA. I Teheran har Irans premiärminister Mossadegh beslutat nationalisera Anglo-Iranian Oil Company. Britterna utlyser en internationell handelsblockad mot Iran och landet störtas i kaos. Men de brittiska och amerikanska oljebolagen finner åtgärden otillräcklig och flyr landet. De pressar Storbritanniens premiärminister att be Eisenhower om hjälp att röja Mossadegh ur vägen. Allen Dulles planerar en operation som ska störta Mossadegh och återinsätta den unge shahen på tronen. Shah Reza Pahlavi kommer sen att styra Iran tills han själv störtas 25 år senare.
It was not a big super planned coup. It was a big crazy thing that happened.
But you know who was behind that? It was British Petroleum. British Petroleum, the Prime Minister of Britain, came to Eisenhower and said, there's a threat here of taking over the Iranian oil fields. We need it, just as you need Saudi Arabia. And so the Americans went along.
Macmillan was Prime Minister at the time, and he brought a lot of pressure to bear on Eisenhower, Americans, Allen Dulles, and so forth, to do something about the situation there.
When the British approached the Eisenhower administration, the argument that convinced Eisenhower to say yes was not that we'll give you some of the Iranian oil when it's over. It's that Mossadegh is losing power to the communists. And the Soviet Union is going to win Iran the way the communists won China. And you, President Eisenhower, don't want to be the president who has to answer the question, who lost Iran? There was a very formal procedure on the Mossadegh affair. This was an organized plan. Mossadegh is a bad leader. He's weak. The communists are strong. He's also irrational. The Shah's also weak. He's not going to do anything about it. We have to intervene to save the country from being taken over by the Soviets. Just that blunt.
Mossadegh was a communist, and I have no doubt he was. I thought it was a good idea. If we had not got rid of Mossadegh, you might have had a very different kind of government. Socialist, communist, God knows what.
We can't now let Iran fall, but at the same time, we're not going to fight a war like Korea in Iran. We're not prepared to do that. So the cheap way to do it is covert operations. CIA will be more active. And so Allen Dulles became the director of CIA with the mandate to be active. And he said the inexpensive way to be a great power is to topple governments with the CIA. So this was a huge success. That's why they thought, well, Guatemala and other places do it this way. You know, it's easier. And the question of whether it's moral or immoral.
I juni 54